We sometimes forget that when we teach a person how to do something and we let them go do it, them not doing it exactly the way you want it can be a really good thing.
Welcome to Veteran Led. I'm your host, John Barry. From Camp Cowboy in Kempner, Texas, we are shooting today, and we are honored to have our guest, Major General retired Dusty Shultz. Welcome to the show, Dusty.
Thank you, John. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be back at Camp Cowboy. A lot of fun because I'm working on the next phase of my life, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Now, for most of us, the transition was an afterthought. We were thinking we were getting out, and that's the most important thing, and we didn't spend enough time doing it. Now, you have been very meticulous and deliberate about your recent transition, so I'd love for you to tell our veterans who are listening how yours was different and how it was better than many that you've seen.
Well, thank you. So I didn't do the skill bridge, and I didn't do 6 months being off from my last job. I just left being the director of intelligence for United States Southern Command. But I will tell you that 3 years ago, I thought I was retiring. And so the decision 3 years ago to take transition seriously and take it in pieces was absolutely huge. And so that's really where I've been, is 3 years ago when my family and I had a conversation, and it had to be a family decision of what do we want next? Where do we want to be? That was fundamental. Having informational interviews with leaders, with peers, with subordinates that had already done this, learning, that was huge. Additionally, 3 years ago, I was fortunate enough to join up with a organization called American Corporate Partners, and they linked me with a professional who was in industry who could talk to me about what industry was looking for. And so I started thinking about what I wanted to be when I grow up. What did I want that next stage? I wouldn't say chapter, because I think our life in the military, particularly when we're retiring, is so much more than a chapter. So I really did a lot of thinking about that, a lot of interviews, and I had a lot of individuals say, you need to decide on an industry. You need to decide exactly what role you want to do. And honestly, I've fought that. And for me, that's worked well, because I wanted, first and foremost, I didn't want to work with jerks anymore. Not that I worked with a lot of incredible people in the military, but sometimes when you're in an organization, you don't get to choose all the people you're working with. I was about people, purpose, and passion. And I really wanted to make sure that I was making an impact. But I didn't know if it was going to be in a specific industry. I really wanted to just get on fire by enjoying the people that I was working with. And so that's where informational interviews and having conversations with people, tough conversations about what works, what doesn't, has really come into play for me.
Now, earlier this morning, I heard you give a speech here at Camp Cowboy. And for those of you that don't know about Camp Cowboy, it's an equine therapy. It's great opportunity for veterans to come and not only learn how to become a cowboy, but also learn business skills and other skills that are going to help them be successful at the next level. And this is for active duty military and veterans. Major General Shultz is giving a speech. And one of the things you said is, you always have to learn. And what's that like being you got 2 stars on your shoulder, or I guess, now on the ACU, but you've got two stars, you know a lot, you're respected because of what you know, and now you got to start over. How do you do it?
Maybe that's been the story of my life. So I'm mildly dyslexic. Most people don't know that. Yes, I can read, I have a couple master's degrees, I can write. What that does mean is I had to embrace learning and the love of learning early. And I had to chase and find that growing is good. And you can't grow if you don't fail. So you got to fail fast. And so as you fail, how do you take that moment and say, okay, I don't have to fix it all next, but what's my next step? And how do I consistently run after that? And so for me, learning is a lifelong thing. And so learning excites me. And I've had to embrace that throughout my career. I started off in a field artillery drill sergeant unit, and I've been in logistics units, intel units, and I've always had to learn. And honestly, when I first went into the military, not many people expected very much of me. When I went to New Mexico Military Institute, where I met Scott Robeson and my husband, people knew I was wonderfully determined, but I also probably was the first person to fail in the group. but I'd try at least, and then I'd learn from it. And so as I look forward in this growth point in my life, I'm learning how to try things that make me uncomfortable, how to identify what I don't like because I just don't know the skill, or what I don't like because it's something I really just don't care for. I don't feel like I want to be a snake wrangler. That's just not me, but thank you very much. But that doesn't mean I don't want to wrangle other types of things. And so I'm working right now on figuring that out in a more portfolio approach, and really having some fun conversations with people who have gone in front of me. And to me, that's the number one thing, is to have those conversations, to figure out not only what I want and what my family wants, and the balance of time and the hard work, but also what does that mean as your impact in the world? Because I'm not ready to go to sleep right now without knowing that I am still making the world a better place. And so I want to put my energy all in and make an impact.
Yeah, and I think that's so key, because we're talking about impact above ego here. And I think the misconception is that for a lot of people, you reach the general officer level, you reach that pinnacle of success in some people's eyes, and maybe in your own goals, in the eyes of you when you were 30 years old or whatever it was, when you said, I want to be a general officer. And then you get there, and then you realize it's not about ego, not about what you need to be doing, because that can be dangerous and very dangerous. And I think when we hear about the 22 a day and we hear about veteran suicide, we think about, this is some, poor junior soldier who, deployed several times, or this is some, maybe an NCO who's, towards the end of his career, his life fell apart. But you've had to deal with casualty assistance in your life, and you had to deal with it for a general officer. And I'd love for you to share that story if you would.
Absolutely. I had a dear friend who was also married to a general officer who had transitioned in front of me, and he left the military, and before his 6 months of transitioning from the military were up, he committed suicide. And I was given the call to be the casualty assistance officer for his wife, who was a then still serving 1-star general. And
he was a 2-star.
And he was a 2-star. And I had constantly harassed him and saying, okay, I'm watching you. How are you doing this transition? I'm watching you. And what I came to find out over time is the transition wasn't easy. And a lot of people have a hard time accepting that new mission role. This guy was a friend to many and a leader and a servant leader. He taught me how to eradicate marplots, which are seditious, undermining bureaucrats. He taught me how to move at the speed of trust. So losing him was not only hard on me and his wife and his family, but to the community. But it also inspired me and made me get serious about, I want to be there for my family, and I want to be there for my community. And so I need to prepare myself now with the skills to get after who I want to be in my next role. And I didn't know exactly what that looked like. But, we send kids to school and we don't know exactly that they're going to be a doctor, but we still teach them the alphabet and math. So with that being said, I think it's important that we embrace learning and run after it and have conversations and learn and grow.
Yeah, I think we don't want to get lost in our own museum with the I love me wall and everything we've done. And that becomes our identity after a while, right? It's my rank, my time in service, the people I serve with. That's who I am. And then you have to move away from that. And at this point, if it's all about you and all about your ego, it's a very depressing thing to walk away from that.
You're absolutely right. So when you think of some of the best soccer teams in the world, have incredible players on it, but they wear the jersey they're given. And sometimes also things like the goalie gets to make the goal. And he was given the jersey of being a goalie, but he's got to kick that goal to break the tie. I share that with you is because we really need to make sure that we're wearing the jersey that we're given. And for me, being a servant leader, being the best of myself while giving to others has been huge, but it's not about me. And I honestly, at 30 years old, didn't want to be a general. That was not my aspiration. I think sometimes I get concerned by young individuals who decide that they want to be a general because it becomes all about them. And I found out that for me, the more I gave to the team, the more I got back. The more I invested in the individuals in the team, the more I got back. And I was tapped on the shoulder to promote, and I'd be shocked because I didn't think I was the one. And I was fortunate to have leaders that invested in me and said, no, you're giving back, and that's what the team needs as a whole.
Yeah, that servant leadership. It's once again, it's not about ego, it's about impact. And as you look to the next challenge, I say challenges that you're going to face in your life, what is the impact that you want to have?
I want to have an enduring impact that enables others to not only run after their dreams, but to obtain their dreams. I want to have a cultural effect that drives individuals to really live and build teams of trust, because we move at the speed of trust. And so as you build that team and you build and you invest in people, and they are self-sustaining individuals who they themselves can help grow other teams of teams, that's the magic. And, it sounds a bit idealistic, and I'll admit, my husband really does call me Par for puppies and rainbows. I am this pragmatic idealist. I am an optimist at heart, and I see the world as it should be. At the same token, sometimes I recognize we're in the sludge, and we got to just trudge through the sludge. But we have a choice in life on how we want to respond to things, and I want to respond to things positively. I don't want to spend my life being miserable. I am not ignoring the bad things in this world, but I'm doing what I can to change my part in an imperfect world.
And you have a certain agility about you that, once again, forgive my prejudices, but that I didn't expect to hear from a general officer. A lot of times we think of general officers, we think that they are, they can be very bureaucratic in nature, and yet you are sought after by entrepreneurial companies. And as we talked, you've got amazing project management credentials, but you really believe in speed and getting things done.
Absolutely.
Getting them done right, but getting them done in transparency. And so tell us a little bit about your project management credentials, because I think this is important because here's the thing. I think too often, right, I think when senior leaders get out and this is why I did not want to become an 06. I got out when I was an 05. Lieutenant Colonel was the last time your soldiers recognized your walk in the night when that battalion commander. I realized I didn't want to go to the next level because a lot of the individuals that I knew, like I said, they were great at politicking and they were great at bureaucracy, but that is not what you need in an entrepreneurial company. And so it was interesting to me that some of the opportunities that you have, you're highly sought after for these entrepreneurial companies that want you to figure out how to get things done. And I love that you said, hey, MDMP, the military decision-making process, it's a great process, but it's not the right thing for every project. So tell us about that.
Well, so it's interesting that you ask about that. So a couple things. So one is, when I was made the Director of Strategic Operations for the Army staff, and I was working for the G357 of the Army, he looked at me and said, Dusty, we have to transform the Army's data program. We're outdated, we're clunky, we're slow. And here you go. This is within your portfolio, here you go. I was fortunate enough at the time that my husband had gone back to college to get a coaching degree, and in my mind that, okay, well, I worked 16-hour days, but I could come home and be a study buddy. And so I decided that I was going to do some binge learning. And so because I realized that commercial America was outpacing our military thinking process on how to implement dynamic processes at scale, at scope and scale. So I did binge learning, and I was certified in project management professional, then Scrum Master, then Agile, then Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, all to learn, how do we think about what we're doing at scope and scale, and then employ it to our overarching whole military. Because as many know, my mantra to people was, I joined the military to fix it. I joined it to make it a better place. So how do I help it make it a better place? People would sometimes show me in the military, hey, you can't do this because of this piece of paper from 1980. And I would literally read it and go, that was written in 1987 when I I'm like, why are you showing me something that's that old? I mean, I'll follow the Constitution, but still, we've had modifications. So I tell you that because I paused and I realized that a lot of people don't even think about, okay, we need to rewrite this policy. And when I was as the director of strategic operations on the Army staff, we got to start rewriting policy. We got to start rewriting how we were looking at problem sets. So we were no longer thinking that carrier pigeons sent messages. Because that's how it felt sometimes. It's like we were going back to a World War II model. And we have so many dynamic, incredible thinkers. And what really I was able to do was kind of harness that capacity and use it to change how we are thinking models. How do we get after this? And how do we really harness and utilize other people's thinking powers? Because when you rethink how you're doing business and allow other conversations to come into play, sometimes you're amazed because people are going to show you shortcuts. People are going to show you stronger sides of what you need to be doing. And so that just really became a critical element of how I looked at the world.
Outstanding. And now time for the after action review, where we talk about great leadership and poor leadership. If you could, Dusty, we'd love to hear your 3 examples of great leadership, 3 examples of poor leadership. You don't have to name names.
Okay. Great leadership. So great leadership, I will tell you, happened to me several times when I had commanders who gave me intent, clear purpose with an end state, and helped me engage with disciplined initiative and assumed some prudent risk. To me, that was just empowering. And I can, the times that I had command, I was fortunate to have great commanders. I have also had, in poor leadership to me often rises up with micromanagement. Poor leadership rises up with a lack of trust, a lack of willing to assume risk. We sometimes forget that when we teach a person how to do something and we let them go do it, them not doing it exactly the way you want it can be a really good thing. And we forget that. And so I've had some leaderships that have crushed me for not doing it exactly their way. And for the most part, I try to win them with my doing, my reasoning, and I praise in public, and I will have serious conversations with individuals that I have challenges with behind a closed door all day long.
Now, I have struggled with that last concept of praise in public and admonish privately. Not the praise in public, but what I found as a young lieutenant was sometimes if I didn't address something and I addressed it privately, what they thought was that staff sergeant was getting away with that. I would praise them publicly for the stuff they did well. And sometimes the people who got the most praise were also the ones you needed to talk to behind closed doors the most. And I found that I created an atmosphere where people thought, Staff Sergeant Smith, he's Lieutenant Barry's favorite. He can do no wrong, but we know he's done this, this, and this. And Barry talks about how great he's done these things. He doesn't talk about the other things. And so, sometimes as I've developed as a leader, I found that sometimes, it can be a cheap lesson when only one person in the organization has to learn it and to get it out there. I don't like to always call out names, but I do like to not waste the crisis, not waste the mistake, and let the team learn. How do you do that in a way where you don't alienate that soldier or corporate officer who needs to be admonished, and you should probably do it privately, but it would do a hell of a lot of good if the whole team knew the whole story so they could learn that lesson without having to make the same mistakes?
I think that's brilliant that you brought that up, because a lot of people go either or. I would like to think that, like you, I'm a little bit balanced because I do admonish in private. That being said, the real money is when you can tell a story. The person knows that, hey, we're going to go out there and we're going to tell the team what happened. That your team needs to know that you're going to be transparent with your failures. And while I might have to lay down the law, write a letter of concern, write a letter of admonishment of some sort to an individual, and I regularly will sit down the people that I'm having challenges with. I'm an ex-school teacher, so to me, it's like giving you a report card. But I also think that it's wise for us to maybe not by name, but post the grades and clearly say, we've had these problems and these are the things that we're doing to fix it. And you tell it more as a narrative. And I think that's powerful.
The speed of trust.
Absolutely.
Dusty, where can veterans learn more about you and your career? Are you on LinkedIn?
I am on LinkedIn. I joined LinkedIn back when I was the director of strategic operations because it was part of information and getting my professional brand out there to the greater world to help them understand the goodness that things were being done in the military and in the Army. So they can find me on LinkedIn. Shultz has no C in it, SHULTZ. And so I'm working with that. I'm working with several different companies on advisory roles, trying to help them enable their superpowers and unlock the capacity of their teams as well.
And finally, we'll close with this. As a leader, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
There's no I in team. There's only an E for we. And the power of the team is incredible. Invest in it.
Thank you for joining us today on Veteran Led, where we pursue our mission of promoting veteran leadership in business, strengthening the veteran community, and getting veterans all of the benefits that they earned. If you know a leader who should be on the Veteran Led podcast, report to our online community by searching @Veteran Led on your favorite social channels and posting in the comments. We want to hear how your military challenges prepared you to lead your industry or community, and we will let the world know. And of course, hit subscribe and join me next time on Veteran Led.